Did you listen to the president's response?
I listened to parts of it, and I heard the ferocious nature of the response.
Yeah.
Nothing like Mr. Darboe's statement. To begin where you started, Mr. Darboe has a natural aura. I spoke to him the day after his welcoming, and I told him one thing that nobody could take from you is that as an opposition figure, the love you have amongst your supporters is very rare. It's one of a kind. Many people went to receive him, not because they were financed, not because they were taken there, they took themselves there.
Yeah.
And this shows how much his supporters appreciate and love him. Because of the kind of person we know he is.
Yeah.
He's a person of high integrity. He fights for justice. And that speaks to even some of the topics he touched on. The issue of the land, the issue of mega bank. He has insiders all over government.
Yes.
When he speaks with it with authority. He knows exactly the transactions that have happened, what has gone on. So when he speaks about it, he knows exactly what he's talking about. And he's the type Dubai. Dubai. So he's going to keep pushing it until he has answers. What we expect is a response that is also of policy. A response that disproves what Mr. Darboe said, but not a personal response with low blows. I think this is what's missing in our political discourse. There should be a level of respect, a level of class, a level of sophistication that talks about ideas. I heard Mr. Darboe's speech, and he spoke about ideas and policies and how he wants to see our government accountable. And that is his work as a leading opposition figure. So I think maybe the president must have felt that maybe UDP was dormant or dying, and then all of a sudden there's huge crowds up to 1 a.m. in the morning. And this was a welcoming that was just basically announced on WhatsApp groups. I am the organizing secretary. I can tell you there was no major preparation or logistics for this welcoming. It was just purely publicized in forums, publicized in Facebook, etc., and people just responded. And maybe this was the trigger for the president, and this is why he responded so ferociously.
The president said something that really was alarming for me. He said, because Mr. Darboe talked to the police to be careful, he spoke to the IGP to say, don't allow himself to be used by the president because he's the president's in-law. And, you know, he thanked the other security officers, obviously, for, you know, what they have done. And he also talked about the controversial $40 million for the journalists. He said it could have been used for the police and all that stuff. And Mr. Darboe said, spoke about that, but Barrow said, if there was no democracy in the Gambia, Mr. Darboe and a lot of the members of your executive would have been in jail today because of his tolerance, because of the democracy in this country that he has made available. That is why Mr. Darboe and others are not in jail. When you hear something like that.
Right, it just speaks about his mindset, right? So basically, I first want to thank the police, just as lawyer Darboe did. I visited them after Mr. Darboe sent me there to discuss about conditions in the permit. We were received by the senior management of the police. They were very polite. We had a cordial discussion, a debate. We agreed to disagree, but at the end of the day, we had the access and we had that cordial discussion. Also on the ground, we did see a massive presence, but we saw them very professional, and they were there, it seems, to protect the crowd and make sure there was orderly procession where nobody got hurt. And they went all the way. So I think everybody was impressed amongst the supporters about the professionalism of the police. And this is why they need funding. This is why police need to be supported to make them more independent. A well-paid police is a more independent police. And this will allow them to have more capacity to understand that democratic policing needs some work. Outside of that, in terms of the president's remarks, it's just what I said. This is the mindset change that happens when you overstay or you are intending to overstay. Because you start looking at government as a personal property. You start looking at individual freedoms as something you are giving them and not something that is their basic right. I mean, the president should not determine who gets arrested or not, should not determine who gets to walk free or not. That should be by a just constitution through a fair judicial process. with a competent police to ensure that there's proper investigations done. So the fact that he's saying that the reason you are free today is by my own will speaks to a lot of the mindset change that happens when somebody intends to overstay in power. And it's a dangerous place he's going into. And he has enough time to save himself from that trouble. So this is why I say two-term limit is a natural way in which leaders can leave power in a very peaceful transitional way.
The president said so many other things, but one of them is regarding councils, and I'll come back to that when we talk about councils. But one thing I ask every guest that I have here now, and I want to keep having that conversation, is third term. Because it seems like the president doesn't want us to talk about third term. And naturally we will, because we have said, journalists have said a lot of things about this president and this government. But the fact that the president is upset that we're talking about his succession plan, that says a lot about why they're concerned. And I asked Sidi, I said, why is NPP worried about us talking about third term? We are going to talk about that because, I mean, yes, we know that there's no term limit. The president said this on his audio. He said, why are they saying that he should not be candidate? Gambia term limit monsotoja. Term limit monsotoja. Now he's telling us directly, based on which is true though, to president's defense, there's no term limit in our constitution. But, the president himself has told us that he's not a fan of term limits. He's not a fan of going beyond two terms. And, he has said this several times that he's only going to do 2 terms in interviews. But it seems like he's changing that. Do you think we should have conversations of around third term more often? Is this a way, and I've seen that you guys are doing that, is this the way of putting pressure on the president? Is that what you guys are trying to do? Because it seems like it agitates them whenever you guys talk about it.
So you said tamsi among soto, but I nyanta soto. So his words, run again. But the time limit man soto na constitution okon. But I nyanta soto la. Exactly. So basically, look at the norms around West Africa and the globe. Look at the norms in our neighborhood. Look at Ghana. Look at now Sierra Leone. Madabio, this is his last term.
Yeah.
Right? He's accepted it. There's already an internal political process within his party for a replacement.
Yeah.
Look at Ghana. Look at Senegal. All these countries around us now, we are the only pariah.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, we should follow international norm. Now, UDP, our mayors have all declared. I was the first to declare. I said, I'm not going for a second term, even during my election. Yeah. That's when I was saying it. And every day I repeat it and make it a point. So that those who are interested in a mayoral position can start preparing themselves. So that as an example to the government, that second term is a natural part of life. You will be getting more tired. You will run out of ideas. You understand? As long as you keep staying in power, you will start turning autocratic. You will start believing this is my seat. So power does affect your brain. There's actually a study that's proven that. It does affect your brain and your psychology, and will affect your behavior and how you treat people around you. And this is exactly what is happening. When the president starts looking at the government as his personal property, he feels that leaving it and leaving somebody else is as if he's giving his property to somebody else, and becomes easily offended if people talk about the potential of him leaving. We should be a natural part. That's why it was better to be guaranteed by the Constitution, and the choice is removed. So no matter what character comes, they have no choice but to prepare for succession. And that is healthy for the country, to self-correct, and to basically channel back the energy in how we can bring prosperity and progress, right? So I think for the president, as I warn and keep warning, right, he should start preparing, because this is in his best interest. Right? And I gave Macky Sall as an example. Yeah. Right? It is in his best interest to live life after president as an elderly statesman, respected by everybody, with his legacy sealed. And this is the best time to start planning for that change.